Hello everyone. In this session we are going to discuss about the new chapter, that is respiration, of the paper 3 Physiology, Biochemistry and Immunology, that is for the third semester for the second year B.Sc students. So in this chapter mainly we will be studying about external and internal respiration, respiratory pigments, three main pigments: hemoglobin, hemocyanin and hemoerythrin, and physiology of respiration, that is exchange of gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen, transport of oxygen, oxygen dissociation curve, and also the transportation of carbon dioxide and chloride shift. And at last we will be studying about respiratory quotient. So in this session mainly we will be discussing about external and internal respiration. So before that respiration, we need to know about what do you mean by breathing. So breathing is nothing but, we all animals require energy, including humans. So from where it is derived? It is derived by the breakdown of nutrient molecules like glucose. So during the catabolic reaction, that is the breakdown of molecule into simpler component, the glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water. So in the presence of oxygen, when the breaking down takes place, the energy is released in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. So now this energy is utilized by the animal to carry out their metabolic reactions or the different types of physiological actions. So now this carbon dioxide produced by the cells, so that is harmful and toxic. It has to be thrown out. So this process of exchange of gases, that is oxygen from the environment and carbon dioxide from the body to the environment, this is called as breathing. So now this breathing is simply defined as intake of fresh air and removal of foul air. So that is exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. But what is respiration then? So respiration is nothing but it is a set of metabolic reaction and processes that takes place inside the cells of organism, where the energy is stored in the form of adenosine triphosphate or biochemical energy. In other way, it is also defined as it is a metabolic process wherein the living cell of the organism obtain energy in the form of ATP by taking in oxygen and liberating carbon dioxide in the form of oxidation of complex organic substances. So this is the definition for respiration. So what are the types of respiration? So types of respiration, we are having two types, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration means it is a type of respiration where oxygen is produced to energy. So here oxygen has to be present, then only that is called as aerobic respiration. So for example, you can see the glucose plus oxygen, it gives carbon dioxide, water and energy, that is in the form of ATP. So usually aerobic respiration, it is also a cellular respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen. But whereas in anaerobic, it is the type of cellular respiration which takes place in the absence of oxygen. So usually here what happens, the alcohol will be formed, or fermentation is a step where anaerobic respiration takes place. So you can see in the example, glucose is giving alcohol, carbon dioxide and energy. So that is fermentation step. So now coming to the main concept, that is external and internal respiration. So you know the external respiration, it takes place between the environment and the lungs. But internal respiration, what happens? It takes place between the blood and cells. So oxygen is given out and carbon dioxide is coming out. So that is how the internal respiration takes place. And also you are having the cellular respiration also. So we'll see in detail. So first, the internal respiration. So what happens in internal respiration? So here the gas exchange between blood and metabolic tissue. So that refers to a internal respiration. So the oxygen which is taken up by blood during the external respiration and it is transported to the tissue to form oxyhemoglobin. So in next session we will be studying about the respiratory pigments. So where oxygen is required for the activation of hemoglobin, that is our respiratory pigment. So during that time the tissues like skeletal muscles, they require oxygen. So now they carry out the cellular respiration by which cells produce energy in the form of ATP, that is mainly glucose. And now ATP is used to derive cellular function. So cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria and carbon dioxide is produced as the waste during cellular respiration. So later then what happens in tissue? The exchange of gases takes place and made in between the blood and interstitial fluid found inside the tissue. So as it is called as cellular respiration, it has got two phases. So in first phase, the cells takes the oxygen from the interstitial fluid and gives out carbon dioxide to the same. And in second phase what happens? The sum of enzymatic reaction, both oxidative and non-oxidative, by which energy is made available to maintain other vital activities. So this is about the internal respiration. So here that time what happens? The carbon dioxide is removed and oxygen is in high demand. So the partial pressure of oxygen will be low. That means the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be higher. So due to that the partial pressure of oxygen is high and carbon dioxide will be lower down. So therefore oxygen diffuses out from the blood or out to the blood into the tissue and carbon dioxide diffuses out. So this partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained. So that is how the partial pressure of oxygen will be 100 mm mercury and carbon dioxide is 40 mm mercury. So this is how it will be in the tissue. So this is how the exchange between the tissue and the cell takes place or interstitial fluid. So as you can see, the partial pressure of oxygen will be at 40 and later how this oxygen dependent blood carriers are very important. So these carry out through lungs and to heart by veins. So this is how the internal respiration takes place between cells and tissue. So next coming to external respiration. So in external respiration what happens? So here only mechanism through which the exchange of gases takes place between respiratory surface, that is maybe skin, gills or lungs, to what? To environment. And here in external respiration they are mainly closely associated with the breathing itself and involves following step, mainly inspiration and expiration. So they are very important. So inspiration and expiration in detail we'll be studying. So before that what happens? The oxygen depleting blood which is transported from metabolic tissue. So there the flow through the pulmonary capillary where oxygen diffuses from the alveolar air into the blood. So this is how the external respiration takes place and here the partial pressure are very important. The partial pressure of oxygen in blood it increases to 100 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide it is maintained up to 45 mm mercury and whereas in alveolar air it is around 40 mm mercury. So that due to that there is the exchange of carbon dioxide occurs from blood to alveolar air. So due to that exchange the oxygen and carbon dioxide occur until the equilibrium. So this is how the external respiration carries out and at final what happens? The oxygen is maintained 100 and carbon dioxide is maintained 40 due to their partial pressures and the blood which leaves the lungs is called as oxygen rich blood. So oxyhemoglobin, what I have said. So we'll be studying about the respiratory pigments in detail, and later the oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported through the blood by binding with the hemoglobin, which is a respiratory pigment, and later they are transported to the plasma, and thus the external respiration takes place at the lungs. So this is how the external respiration takes place inside the cells and the tissue. So where the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide are maintained around 100 mm mercury and 45 mm mercury respectively. And you can see the oxygen which is dissolved in plasma, which is dissociating out also. So this is the difference between external respiration and internal respiration. So please go through this, and it can be asked for 3 marks on your examination point of view. So that's all about this session. So mainly in this session we have studied about what do you mean by respiration and breathing, and what are the different types of respiration like aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, and how the internal respiration differs from external respiration, and also a small note about inspiration and expiration. So inspiration is nothing but taking air inside, expiration is throwing out the air, but the physiological changes will be studied later while studying the physiological changes during the respiration and what are the organs of respiration in detail. So that's all about this session. Thank you.